Hello, it's pipe smoking bloke.
I listened to an old friend describe a girl he'd met. In the way I could see her, heartbreak in silhouette. He said her hair was golden.
You see, the thing is,
Her eyes were violet. It surely had
the thing is, people,
heartbreak in silhouette. He said
people who actually smoke these things are given to relaxation, maybe contemplation. Stillness, calmness. Now, I want to show you a picture. Now, throughout this book, Carl Jung, there are umpteen pictures like this. You see, he's got his pipe there. He's out in nature, barefoot. Getting back to basics, people. Now, we'll see if we can find another one. Jung built his home in the countryside, right alongside a lake. And he built it out of stone and wood. And he never had any electricity, no running water, no telephone, anything like that. Because in his life he'd worked out that that is the path to God. Whatever we want to call God, a stillness of the mind and the heart, a freeness from the ego, an empty mind, people. An empty mind is the kingdom of God. And how many of us have it? How many of you have it? How many of you have had it and lost it? How many of you are so far away from it? I know a lot of people who have mental issues, and people with mental issues don't get no rest. They don't get no peace. Their mind is a living hell. So when we look at heaven and hell, people, trust me when I say this, because I've been to both. Heaven is an empty mind and a still heart. Hell is a racing heart and a busy mind. That's just how it is, the human experience. And if anybody else tells you otherwise, they're fools. And if they tell you God's up in the clouds, or God's out there somewhere in the cosmos and he's looking at us and he loves us, they're delusional. Anyone who has had real intelligence in this life have worked it out for themselves. They haven't listened to manipulators and fools. They've worked it out for themselves, people. That the portal to what the human being would consider to be heaven is a still heart and an empty mind out in nature, ideally under the sun. And that's it. Once you've found that, you found heaven. As to whether there's a heaven when we die, it's very speculative. But I will tell you now that heaven is here, and so is hell. All potential is here. Why? Because it stems from the old noggin. It all depends on your state of consciousness, whether your brain is creating a living hell. So I know a lot of people that have got mental issues, or they are traumatized, and they are experiencing hell every single second of every single day of their lives, and most of them have never known anything different. But for those of you who can smoke a pipe and sit and listen to calm, soothing music like they used to in the old days, sitting and listening to classical music in front of an open fire of an evening time, stilling the mind and the heart. Really, really important. So I'm in communication with quite a few people really, and none of them are free. None of them are completely free. Most of them are very, very far flung from being free. And it's a travesty. But in lots of instances, it cannot be changed because it's a configuration of their psyche. Their psyche has been twisted, been warped, it's been perverted, it's been damaged, and maybe they will never be free from the ramifications of that. Some will. But you have to learn about your own psychology, people. You have to learn about what this life is, and you have to study and contemplate. And so, I'm mentioning to you from time to time my book. And in here there is 650 pages, 250,000 words, and it's quite an intimidating affair because there's no gaps in it. It's solid data, chock-a-block. If it wasn't condensed like this, then it would be enormously thick. And there's certain parameters. This is almost at the extremity of a parameter, of a thickness of a book. And on my bookshelf, there are classics from Dostoevsky and Madame Blavatsky and Yogananda Paramahansa. They are equally as voluminous as this. And most people are terrified of a book like this. But there has been 120 of you who have purchased the book. And I've only spoken or heard from one of you. Sorry, two who have completed the book and have had anything to say about it. And I find that pretty perplexing. I find it worrying because people can't read these days. And I think it's a condition of modern society. It's pertaining to the food, to the pace of life, to the propaganda, the traumatizing. I speak to certain people, a few people, viewers, and I asked them how they're getting along with the book. And they've been reading it for months, almost a year. And I'm like, what are you doing? And lots of people could say, oh, we've got fucking more important things to do in life than read your fucking book. I fucking gotta do this, I fucking gotta do that, and fucking hell, and fucking hell, fucking hell, fucking hell. Yeah. Yeah. I hear you. It's immensely difficult to find the stillness of the mind and heart, to sit down in an empty room in peace and quiet and open a book and not get infuriated with yourselves, not get bored within 3 seconds, to actually find the constitution to sit and be content in the acquisition of some knowledge from the pages of a book, instead of having the flashing and the shit going on. How many videos today have these immensely fucking infuriating doodling when the narrator is speaking? It's not enough just to speak, it's not enough for people just to listen. They've got to see you doodling. And when the person's speaking about taking a flight to another country, they show you a picture of a plane and some clouds and another country. And then maybe they're speaking about like eating correctly, then they show you foods which you should eat and foods that you shouldn't eat. Really? Fucking really, people? Do we need this incessant fucking bombardment with this elementary shit? I don't. And I won't tolerate it. I won't fucking tolerate it. So, I don't know where the world's going, but of course we've got a pretty good idea. The world isn't going to be reading anymore. The world isn't going to be delving into certain subject matter extensively like scholars or people who have a keen interest in the subject. I think there'll come a day when books won't even be printed because there'll be no call for them. Because everyone's going to be thinking that they can get all the information they need on a 20-second fucking TikTok feed or something like that. Or maybe a 3-minute video. And I asked you guys in the last video, how many of you watch the videos all the way through? One person said they did. It's a mental illness, isn't it? It's a sickness. It's an obsession of wanting to get the bigger, better deal all the time. Faster bites, more information, the answers, the answers, the answers. A desperate sickness to be furnished with what you would consider the answers. Well, I've told you for 15 years there are no answers, people. There's just information. And that never, ever, ever ends. So any of you looking for answers out there or in books, forget it. You're only ever going to be gaining knowledge and entertaining yourselves. If you want to find the answers, you got to shut the fuck up. Sit down in an empty room, in an empty house, away from all distractions. Close the mind down and enter into a meditation. And when you are in a meditation, oftentimes we can have very, very gentle thoughts just fluctuating, just drifting in and out. This is in the latter stages of meditation, because in the early stages you're going to have annoying shit which is endless, it never ends, and it's just going to be telling you this and telling you that and just a billion things, and 99% of people give up and they go, fuck it, I can't do it. But you have to have constitution, people. You have to have staying power. But I was looking, and I've been looking in lots of respects. The first time I closed my eyes and tried meditation, I was in heaven. I was in the bliss. And from that day on, every single day for the past 15 years, I've been in the meditation. Because I took to it like a duck to water. It was the most beautiful and relaxing and satiating and nurturing thing that I've ever found. And I need that place. The body needs it. I don't even have to go, oh, I need to meditate today. I've got to find time. No, the body just tells me when it's time. Every single day, it just tells me. And when I'm out walking and doing whatever I'm doing, the body will just say, that's a nice place for meditation. Under that tree, on that bench, just close your eyes and shut the fuck up. And I've meditated in many beautiful places all over the world. And it stills the heart, people. But not only that, it opens your consciousness up to the Akasha. And you receive downloads. The amount of information that I've just received via meditation. For years and years, I would meditate, walking around the streets and the cities and the towns, and then I'd have all these innovations. As soon as I open my eyes, I gotta turn the camera on and I'm speaking, sometimes for several hours. You see, it's all well and good watching YouTube and reading books, but if you can meditate, then you will know a priori, you will know intuitively the nature of the cosmos and the nature of what you are. And you will have the greatest of insight into all things, because your mind will be so still and so pure, and your consciousness will be so expansive, you'll see everything for what it is. You'll see the propaganda, you'll see the chaos, you'll feel the pain. You are so open to everything. And that's why I'm always banging on about my potential genius. Because it seems it's a very, very rare thing to be able to free your mind like that. And now, after all these years, my mind is never encumbered with ruminating. I will get downloads throughout any given day, and when they come, I'm like, okay, I've not got my camera on at the moment, but it's been logged. When I got my camera on and the time's right, I'll make the video, and then I make the video. But I don't have the incessant ruminations of loops that go round and round and round and round and round and never end, and there's never any resolve. That's a mental illness. I don't have that. I've never had that. I've never had mental illness. I've been blessed with a pure state of consciousness and an expansive mind. But I've worked on it also. Now, reading seems to be a real issue for the vast majority of people. And I'm always asking, any of you read my book? Any of you got anything to say? Have you been inspired? Have you learnt anything? What are your thoughts? Do you think? What do you feel about this and what do you feel about that? There's a whole myriad of subject matter in here. Very, very powerful subject matter. And the thing is about it, it really shouldn't be that difficult to read. It's not a dense read in that I wrote it in prose, which is basic language. I tried to keep the complex subject matter as plain as I could. And I rewrote chapters and I rewrote paragraphs and I rewrote lines time and time again, trying to simplify the message, because I didn't want the over-eloquence of the language used to bamboozle people. Because I know that if you use too many esoteric words, how many people will pick up a dictionary just to see what that word means? You know, for years, people, when I started reading philosophy and psychology, I was always reading 2 books at the same time. One of them was the dictionary. I had the dictionary next to my bed and I had a pen and paper. And when I was reading Freud and Jung and all these different sorts of stuff, in one page I could come on 10 words I just didn't have a clue what they were. I wrote them all down. Then next to them I wrote what they meant from the dictionary. And then every single day, after I'd finished my book, before I went to sleep, I'd pick up this notepad. And there were sometimes like 30 pages of A4 with lines on of new words, and I'd memorise them and I'd read them over and over and over and over again, and when I could do them off by heart I would cross them out, and eventually I got through a great deal, and there's not that many new words that I come upon these days that I've never seen before, and I don't know pretty well what the word means. But if I don't, then I Google it these days. How many people do that? They'll just skip. And what I'm saying is, if you read one page and then there's one word in there that you didn't know, you would probably lose the essence of all that information because you didn't know what that word meant. And if there's 2 or 3 words that you are not sure of, then most certainly you will lose the essence of what has been said. And so you will be, in actual fact, wasting your time in reading, because you would never be in a stand in anything. Now, what I've done in this book, I've broken it down into very manageable parts, and I've highlighted where we start with a new subject matter. And so here you have 1 page and a half page. And so anyone that's desirous or intent on gaining the knowledge of this book could just do 1 of those each day. And then you turn the page, and then from here you got half a page, and here you got a page. And then you're back again to a heading. And then you've got 1 page, 2 page and a half page. So if you break it down like that, it isn't so intimidating. And these headings, like for here, it's like, what prevents us from entering God's kingdom? Well, in that half a page, you might learn something very, very profound. Then here, religions are the world's first self-help books premised on human psychology. Oh yeah, tell me about that then. Awake and Brave. And then you'll read literally 1 page to get informed on that. And then being born again with DMT. Being born again. Wow, tell me about that. Awake and Brave. Okay, goodness me, half a page. How is it that an enormous amount of potential information can be within such short paragraphs? Depends how you word it. And so, if you have this book and you haven't managed to get through it, or if you want to buy the book and read it, then you can just do it like that. And then every day you can contemplate. I mean, maybe when you get up in the morning, I mean, goodness me, just to read like half a page, it can take you like a minute. So you read that and then you contemplate it, unconsciously or consciously, throughout the day. And then maybe you'll discover some things, you have more questions, and then you come back. And then it will say here, heaven is a state of mind. How's that? Heaven's supposed to be up in the clouds, up in the sky. How can heaven be a state of mind? I'll tell you how. So people, look, it just goes on and on and on and on. And it's not a novel, people. It's not something that you are going to be reading in a few sittings. This book will take you 32 hours if you read at a regular pace. Let's say 300 words in 3 minutes. Now the average book has got about 250-300 words on a page, and so the average reader will read if they absorb in the information, not speed reading it, not just racing to the end. But if you're really reading, then it'll take you 3 minutes to read 300 words. And so when you do that, then you can get through 10 pages a day, 5 pages a day. It isn't a race. It's not a marathon. You're doing it because you want to do it. You're doing it for your own education. You're doing it because in this book, there's one man's life experience. In this book, there's 60 years of experience of global travel and enormous amount of psychedelics and meditation and supernatural paranormal experiences, and not to mention reading all the greats, the philosophers and the psychologists and the science, just energy vampires and attachments. Do you want to know what energy vampires come like? You want to know how they manifest? Do you want to know how to recognize them, how to feel them when they come? They're real, people. They really are fucking real. And when you learn about the spiritual world and you learn about elemental spirits and other varying apparitions and etheric spirits and all the rest of it, you'll know that there's a great deal to be gleaned from studying that stuff. And then you'll start to recognize within yourself resident spirits. And I've mentioned on many occasions, there are many spirits that come and go, people. We don't just have one spirit. There's a whole bunch in some of us. And we have more depending on how complex we are and how experienced we are in life. If you're very, very rudimentary, very mundane, very close-minded with a golf ball size state of consciousness, then why would any spirits want to join you for your journey? But if you have a sense of adventure and if you are a complex person, then you get many spirits joining for the journey because they live vicariously through you. And in here I write about spirits living vicariously through me. And so I've worn my voice out with it, really, haven't I? Speaking to the ignorant masses. To be perfectly frank and fair, 120 of you, I only have 200 regular viewers. So more than half of you guys have bought the book. So well done. All you've got to do now is fucking read it. And if you read it, your world will change, people. Because there's so much powerful information, and if you listen to it and if you take it on board and you absorb it and then you reflect upon your experience, have you experienced these things? How could you experience these things? Then you'll grow exponentially. And so we are in a simulation. That's why we cannot find physical matter. How many of you are familiar with quantum physics? That there's no physical matter in the cosmos. That'll answer that little conundrum. Wow. I've got another couple of books to read before I read this. Again, when it was first off the press, I read it over the span of a week, and I'll do it again to see how it moves me, having not read it for a year and having moved away from the production of it, where you get all clouded and you can't see with the greatest of clarity. But what this video is about, really, people, is for those of you that have bought the book, then dust it off, put it by your bed or put it by your coffee cup, and try to get into some sort of regime whereby you'll read a page a day. And if you do that, then, as I say, your mind, your consciousness will be opened up to so many powerful subjects that you seriously will never be the same again. The slaying of the beast. The slaying of the beast. What do you mean, awake and brave? I mean, the slaying of the beast. People, seek ye first the kingdom of God. Seek ye first the kingdom of God. You see, what does that tell us? That tells us don't go running all around the world, and don't go, immersing yourself in knowledge and, all the rest of that stuff. Seek ye first the kingdom of God. What's the kingdom of God? The inner depths of your consciousness. That's the kingdom of God. So if you seek out that first, wow, everything else will become crystal clear. And every time you read something and learn something, it's like looking at it through a magnifying glass with such clarity. So, people, just sitting here alone, listening to music like that. To put the pipe in my mouth, it brings something about. It's like in previous lives. In the old times, I sat by a fire and I smoked my pipe, and I go back there. You see, people, as soon as I close my eyes, I go into a form of ecstasy. It's such a tranquil and beautiful and still affair. There are no thoughts unless I want thoughts. And as soon as I close my eyes, because I've been doing this meditation for so long, my body knows, and it just goes relax. And within seconds, I'm in the deepest of meditation. And the body is flushed with bliss. There's no anxiety, there's no stress, there's no tension. It's just complete and utter stillness. And that comes from a still mind and a still heart, people. And there's a time and a place for it. And if you have never had it, you won't miss it. But if you have had it, you will long for it. And you'll want to find a way where you can get that back. How do you do it? In peace and quiet, people. Peace and quiet and stillness and solitude. How many of you can do that? How many of you can just close your door and be in heaven? How many of you need the constant source of entertainment, distraction? How many of your minds are poisoned? The vast majority of you. Absolutely, the vast majority of you. The vast majority of the world. And I don't think it's ever been any different. Some people find the kingdom of God and others don't. But you can try. And you start with meditation, people. You start with learning Buddhism, religions, and human psychology to know what it is that's preventing you from entering the kingdom of God. You've got to know this ego thing. You've got to know that through and through. And you have to take mastery over it. And you have to learn how to turn it off completely. Absolutely completely. You turn the ego off. You say, "Good night, ego." And it disappears. And then you're in the bliss. So, if you are intent on the journey to the self, then you might want to pick up this book again and try to apply yourself with a little bit more seriousness. If you want to find the true nature of what you are, start here. And that's why I've said from the very beginning, this is in actual fact the world's first spiritual Bible. You will never ever find God in the Bible or the Quran. You won't even come close. Trust me, I've read them both extensively and I know what I'm speaking about. But if you look inside here and here, you will. Because that's where the kingdom of God is. And so this is why I call this book originally Closer to God. Closer to God and the journey to the self is the same thing. Because when we find the essence of what we are, we find God.